Hi, this is Clan Smoke Jaguar Duelist along with Clan Smoke Jaguar Spetnaz Bear,
Uh,
and we are bringing you some. We're going to try to do some commentary here in the video. I'll be covering the uh, enemy teams as they were called, the Vegan Rangers, and Spets will be covering other aspects of it, and I'll be trying some play-by-play, and Spets will chime in when he has something interesting. So Spets Inferno, what's different about this map that our viewers might not know compared to most regular maps?
I haven't loaded into the game quite yet. I still need to get in. What map is it?
TC Inferno?
Oh, TC Inferno. Well, it's far hotter. Your cooling efficiency is really, um, it's not going to be very efficient. So you're going to probably see a lot of projectile builds. You can see a lot of autocannons, racks, um, and Gauss. Maybe not so much lasers in PPC.
And how are the bases configured? Are one of the bases more important than the others?
I believe the center base has a 2 times multiplier.
Hmm.
Um, my only concern with this is I'm actually kind of surprised it didn't get brought up beforehand. Is that the side bases can get bugged into unusability. If a nuke goes off inside of the side base hangars, you will not be able to spawn mechs there,
So if
which
a
would
mech gets destroyed extra heavy, there's a random chance that it can go into an explosion, and then that can render that base unusable, thus altering the strategy of the map.
right. I'm not sure if Unbroken considers that something worth restarting the match for, or how he intends on handling that. Hopefully, just nobody stack polls, but this is 12th VR, so you never know.
Now, speaking of 12 VR and analysis, they're flyers. Many of their guys can fly rather well, and then they also have the support today of KOS Saber and Neros. Saber, arguably one of the best battle armors, if not the best players, and he and Neros have worked together a long time, and those two can be as dangerous. Like I told our team, they can turn into Vic Viper and Proxima in a hurry. Uh,
Yeah, and especially because of how dark this map is, it can be very difficult to the dark and just the terrain. There's a whole lot of jagged edges when you get near the lava flows, which can make it really easy for battle armor to conceal themselves. In addition, VTOLs are great on this map.
Now, tell me, the lava flows. What does that do if your mech or vehicle goes in here?
Well, if you find yourself in the unfortunate situation of careening into hot lava, you will overheat. Your core temperature will rise exponentially, and you'll very quickly find yourself dead. You aren't able to hop out of it.
Now, jump jets. Do you recommend them generally here to avoid that situation?
Yes, although the issue with jump jets on this map is that if you jump jet over the lava, you still get heat spikes. I actually found that out in a pub game where I thought I was gonna be safe, and lo and behold, I was very not safe. I
Well,
was very
lesson
cooked.
lesson learned. Now, how bad can aircraft and VTOLs get here? In this particular patch, aircraft are a little bit stronger than ground assets, but how is there good cover against them? Is it hard to fly because of the heat? How much of a
uh,
factor is the flight stuff?
with regards to flying in general, once you start to move into the Corsairs and some
We're
of the other
live.
assets, they start to get very mean. I've personally found in pubs that extended range ETMs are actually the best for dealing with them because most pilots they stay at the max near the maximum ceiling of
Mhm.
what this map has. So you can take advantage of that if they're just circling above you at 1300 meters.
Now we're underway here, and Spets. There are a total of 5 bases to capture. Very close to the two teams are two repair bay bases, and then on the edges of the maps at center are two mech factories. But center, as you mentioned, is heavily weighted, and you think that we'll be seeing a lot of battles there at center due to that weight?
Oh, I'm sure we'll be seeing lots of battles. Both teams know that unless they are leading in terms of asset destruction in such a way that don't have to worry about capping the point, uh, they're gonna be fighting like cats and dogs.
Now, Rick Hunter is not dead, but just landed in the lava, as did Ben.
Hmm.
They've sent Shooter to capture that nearby base by their main, and then they've sent 3 assets to center. And now Ben and Rick Hunter look like that they're going to be joining them at center as well. So far, 12VR is not going for the mech bays and instead concentrating on the 2 closest.
Hmm.
Um, Now, Inferno has Inferno been updated with the side bases can only do 65-ton mech builds and repairs?
I'm not entirely sure. I believe that's the case because as I remember, I'm never able to spawn uh things like partisans in them. Currently in game right now, I'm following around Proxima, SJ Proxima, and what I believe is a flamer
It is.
harasser, toast and go.
Now, flamers on this map, risk reward or just a bad idea?
Risk reward. They can be incredibly effective if you are a player who maintains high performance. And when I say high performance, I'm talking about graphical performance. If you're not dropping frames, they can be really effective, and you'll be landing all of your shots very quickly. Um, in fact, that actually makes many of the Puma variants very helpful because all of them have a mandatory hard, not necessarily hard coded on, but it has to be there according to lore. They have to have at least one flamer.
Now, it appears that the Jaguars have secured center, and we now have 12VR heading back to capture one of the side bases. Um, this map is punishing for its heat, and that makes it hard enough if you're having to worry about attacking things. But deciding which bases to capture and when can be critical given that undue weights. And do you think it's possible that if the Jaguars were somehow able to hold center for most of the map, that the 12 VR team could counter by capturing the other 4 bases?
It's possible, but because of the organization of Smoke Jaguar, no no plug unintended. It's very likely that they'll be sending people around the map to foil that. Even if it's just one player, someone moving around with good intelligence and good radar coverage can foil back capping by just simply capping the area back.
Now we have a full-scale engagement here. They are bringing 5 of their 7 assets, eventually bringing 6. Proxima's bringing the Flamers, and Snowgibbon is in first. The rest of his team moving in, and this is going to be all about focused fire here. Not overheating your mech and not going in lava just adds to the challenge, Spetnuts.
Yep. That is the Owens is famous for being able to soak up an incredibly large amount of damage. Um, we'll see how this works out. No Gibbons pulling back.
Now, the skill level is pretty even, I'd say, in this map. Jaguars have got some heavy hitters. The Vegans have got heavy hitters, and I think ultimately this may just simply come down to better strategic choices for which bases to go after and what assets they choose. Spetnuts. Choosing a wrong
Right.
asset and dying can really make a difference here. Flamer Harasser might sound like a good idea at the beginning of a match, and that might work, but as soon as you have 6 things on you and you die, uh,
Yeah.
we have not seen any aircraft yet, and that's a bit of a surprise to me, Spetnuts. What situations would you expect that we would start seeing air here? What things should happen?
Probably the mid game. What things should happen is that you should already have the majority of the cap points, and you should be dictating the pace of the fight. Right now, it looks like SJ has been pretty much routed off the objective. This would be a good opportunity for the Vegans to bring out an air asset.
And now the Vegans did get hit pretty decent, so they're going to have to think about repairs. I think the difference there, Spetnuts, was that there is no repair base at center, and the Jaguars had to fight to get it to begin with, and then I think that the fact they didn't repair was the difference there because the Jaguars went down pretty fast.
That's a good point, Duelist.
And it's been the same core team mostly today. We've done a few substitutions.
Whoop! Kinray runs into the lava.
Ah, but he was dead already. He's just not giving them... Now, how does that work? If you die versus somebody killing you, how does that work in ticket difference or in score difference at all?
Not sure about ticket difference, but I know that it will typically set you back a rank. And and it'll inhibit your ability to progress forward. I've personally had, and I've seen people really struggle through TC matches because they had, one or two deaths due to lava. They just really had a hard time picking up the score needed later to climb out of the hole.
Now it looks like the Jaguars are concentrating on sending a few things to opposite bases, and the Vegans now are beginning to upgrade Ben Ben now and a rotary autocannon bushwhacker. That's a surprising choice. A rotary autocannon weapon on this map.
Uh, Probably gonna need to use it in circle fighting. It can be done, and it can be done well. I would typically advise using two of them at the same time, so that one of them is at least getting some side or back armor at all times.
Now, one thing working against the Jaguars a bit here is that their skill and coordination is going to be very heavily countered here. Every single player that's playing on both teams today is used to organized gameplay, used to playing their role, and I think that it's going to be such a close match that perhaps falling into the lava or perhaps taking a Shiva at some point and crashing in the ground in a close fight might make the difference. All the little mistakes can add up pretty quickly.
Yeah, especially on Inferno.
Now, at the moment, the Jaguars have three assets dancing, all lights. But the problem is they're facing Ben Ben and an Untat. They've got a lot of things to shoot here. What do you focus on when you have four things in front of you? What do you as a pilot like to focus on? Lighter things, pilots.
I prefer to focus on lighter clan assets because they typically have the most amount of weapon systems and can be the most dangerous if left unchecked and just open on the battlefield. If I have the opportunity, I like to try and focus mechs first and steer them away, try and herd them away from their tank support because tanks oftentimes will get stuck or simply just not be able to get good LOS.
The Jaguars are going to lose a lot of tickets here. They're putting up a good fight, but I think that the Vegan Rangers are able to bring all of their assets to bear. So even if the Jaguars survive, I don't think they're going to be holding on to this cap very long. Spets. And sometimes that sucks for timing. You win the objective, but then the enemy is just able to respawn fresh while you're damaged.
Yep.
And as of yet, still no planes. And I think that that'll be changing soon, as you mentioned, kind of toward the middle part of the match that you start getting enough money to think about bombers and fighters and all of these type of things.
Absolutely.
You flown on this map before?
I have flown a number of times on this map. Let's see, what do I prefer? I typically prefer the standard Corsair. I believe it's the H with the Ultra AC5, the SSRMs. Generally a good attack craft. VTOLs are also very good for tagging in LRMs and other types of missile systems.
Well, none of those weapon systems will be used yet, as the airbase is still nice and quiet for the Rangers. They have two assets, Raven and Owens, capturing back their closest base, and the SJs have a long-range asset there, but
I think Kidsen might have just got himself stuck in the lava.
and that isn't good because that's a vulture.
He escaped.
That's good. Because by the time you start getting into heavies, when you make mistakes, if you lose an Owens, that's only a few tickets. But once you start getting into heavies, I mean, what are most heavies? 6, 7, 8 tickets?
Yeah, it really starts to matter. I think if as a smoke jaguar, I feel like it's probably pretty likely that we'll start seeing some Thanatoses after the Mad Dogs.
Because Ben Ben and Sabers and a Rifleman, Ben Ben's and a Chimera, they're starting to push the objective at center. When you need to back cap, which the Vegans are having to do a bit right now, do you prefer to send one person per base, or do you like to keep them teamed up in case they run into something?
Depends on the amount of players I have and what sort of mech class that the main force is encountering. If the main force is encountering mostly heavy assets and really brawly mediums that aren't necessarily super fast, and they've all decided to ball up and brawl, I'll send one person. If it's a Chaos March or if it's a raid or just organized TC. But if it's a larger game, probably a bit larger than a 7v7, I would send two people. Force Recon is really powerful, and a lot of times it's just one person who spawns at the base you're trying to backcap, and they see two mean-looking Black Lanterns or Ryokins or what have you, probably gonna skedaddle.
The Jaguars have a bit of a lead. Snowgibbon has gone solo to capture one of the side bases. The Jaguars have gone back to repair and are all balled up there by that south nearest base by them. And at this stage, they're activating a bit of distance. There's a lot of cover there at that center base, but sometimes you have to attack from range.
Yep. Gauss is really great for that on this map. There's a lot of areas where there are blind corners or places that if you move out of cover, you open yourself up to multiple angles of attack or multiple lines of sight. The Mad Dog Vultures or the Dual Gauss Vulture is really great at exploiting that, as is the Heavy Gauss Hollander.
The Jaguars pushing in force against a force of 4 assets at center. We're about to have a decent battle. Um, Now in this map, Arrow 4 is too hot, Long Tom too hot.
Not necessarily, but I think in terms of just raw fire support, you may end up just being better off with good pop tartars. We're using Gauss. There's a Thanatos with jump jets. It's really good at that sort of thing.
Snowgibbon coming up to hit the Jaguars in the back, but with the Nolans. Jaguars are bunched up, attacking all in one thing, and now are pushing a bit. But after a while, if one team continuously takes center, you have to alter your strategy.
Yep.
Um,
Kidzen's getting pretty heavily focused. Rook's committed.
Now, what's happening here a little bit is that 12th VR brought a Raven in and has an Owens, so they have pretty good radar cover, and I think that that could be an advantage if you bring things with BAP and BHP into this game, because tracking the enemy can be beneficial before you commit to an attack.
Yep. Oop. Down goes Kidzen.
Now, what about a Black Lantern? Is that an asset that you ever play around with on this map?
Not on this map because it's extreme speed. You really can't make use of it most of the time. A lot of times you're just better off using something a little bit heavier in terms of armor, or that's got a little bit more muscle that is not laser based. So what do I like to use? I like to use Bushwhackers. Falcons are pretty good. Thanatoses are great, as are Hollanders. Go ahead.
If it's too hot for Arrow 4 missiles and you have to be careful with a Long Tom, how effective are missiles just in general? Are there any missile systems that can work here, both with the heat and the topography?
ATMs are actually really great on this map. A lot of times you're fighting within medium range in the first place, so if you take advantage of a narc, which is possible that SJ might actually do that in a bit, and they start raining down, standard ATMs, it'll really start to put the hurting on 12th VR.
And now the Jaguars' slight lead has all been but erased, and there is Saber in a dual PPC and SRM Corsair. Do you know if that particular model is a fighter or an attacker or a bomber?
Dual PPC, that's probably going to be a attacker. Is that two?
There are two. Ben now in a Corsair. I'll identify that in a moment, and this is exactly what the Jaguars were worried about, because the Jaguars do have some pilots that can fly, but you would have to think that the Vegans have much more practiced pilots at this point. Spets bringing 2 aircraft can work well, but what are the disadvantages that you run into if the enemy team counters it well?
Pure manpower against backcapping and possibility of a lack of focus. If you're not striking the targets that your main force is, you may very well be wasting your time in terms of just putting out pain.
Now, against a Corsair, that thing doesn't have the greatest armor, decent speed, but you can make anti-air work on the lighter planes. But if they start to bring heavier things, such as Xerxes or Shivas or even Visigoths, outside of Gauss cannons, given the heat limitations, what other weapons can be effective against ground to air?
If they bring out a Xerxes, gonna have some problems. Xerxes are pretty hard to counter on this map unless you bring Gauss and you just don't miss. At that point, it might be a good idea to just put someone in a Sula with dual SSRM 6s and I forget what else it has on it. There's a fighter variant Sula that would probably harass the Xerxes to the point where it'd make it very difficult for it to stay in the air.
Okay, so at a certain point, if the air becomes enough of a problem, you have to commit resources to it to to counter it.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
in this case, I'm not sure what the Visigoth variant is. If it's an attacker, I'm under the impression that likely just one fighter asset would probably be enough to distract or occupy the enemy pilots to the point, or the pagan pilots to the point where aerospace would probably not be as useful.
Speaking of the Vegans, they have opened up a 35 and climbing ticket lead. They've got them worried about the aircraft, and they now have 3 ground assets unopposed at center. Um, It'll be critical for the Jaguars to make a decision and quickly what their priority is, because if you start splitting your resources, um, things can snowball in a hurry in the situation.
Yep. Let's
Um,
see, who does the Smoke Jaguar have who can fly? No one.
Evan and excuse me, Cairo can fly at a respectable enough level in the air, but he's also one of your better attackers on the ground. So I think that you're correct in your analysis that the Jaguars are just going to have to focus on ground-based anti-air, or even just to try and concentrate on overpowering the ground assets.
Probably would be time to bring out the cheese. All the Black Lanterns you can muster.
Yes, speed, I do agree with you, would be something that can counter the planes a bit, because even if you take damage, you can at least get away from there. The Jaguars are in a pretty bad hole now relative to where they've been in most of these games, and it'll be interesting to see how they counter. Um, Now, those planes have to reload pretty often with their bombs and ammunition-based weapons. So there are.
Oh, Proxima's brought out the premier anti-air weapon system in Living Legends, the Dual Gauss Blood Asp.
But that also, if he gets caught out in the open, that he will be a prime target. Uh,
Correct. And for some reason, there are no friendlies to be seen near him.
yes, and on top of this, now that they have a solid lead, growing near 100 tickets, excuse me, well, getting there, 12th
It's on its
VR.
way.
Yes, 12th VR can garrison their forces in multiple spots, and even if the Jaguars commit with a full force to an area, that radio works faster than legs. It's very
That's
easy.
correct.
Yep. As in this case, Carbonell trying to be sneaky now has 3 mechs plus a plane attacking him. Um, now Spetnats, you're here partially because we already had our 7 assigned, but in this case, if you were in and Proxima gave you the option, would you have taken to the air by now?
Absolutely.
And
There's if you're the thing is that you don't even necessarily need to be a great pilot to wrap up enemy aerospace. I'm not nearly at the point of Saber's amount of hours in the pilot seat, but I've had both public games and some competitive TC games where I could keep him occupied just by following him around in an asset with lots of SSRMs. If he's not bombing your buddies, then you know
so
you're
so you
succeeding.
so if I'm hearing correctly, you're saying even somebody like a duelist who is a below average pilot, sometimes even just getting something in the air that can stay on the tail of the enemy can slow that attack down.
Absolutely. And if you bump wingtips and one of you flies into the ground, these things happen.
Jaguars are trying to put some pressure on, but those bombs and I think the thing we've overlooked here is that those aircraft can see anywhere on this map. So even without radar, they definitely can counter the SJ movements before the SJs even move.
Well, what sort of avatar does Carbonell have? I'm curious.
All I know is Rook's in a world of hurt. He's trying to put pressure on coming from their back, but now he's being greeted 3-on-1 by Rotoralkin and Bushwhackers, and he gets 1 kill, but he's not going to get another. As for that avatar, let's go have a look here.
Looks like it has. Oh, body slam! Body slam alert!
That's one way. If the plane survives, though, uh-oh. Guess what you could deal with now, though? Saber has a battle armor. And even with default weapons, that's still...
Nope, never mind.
Carbonell says, not today, duelist. Now, the Jaguars are starting to put pressure on center, but the issue they're going to have here is, again, if they don't pull back fast enough, they're going to be damaged. And even if they can't hold on to center long enough to counter the ticket bleed, I don't know the base situation at the moment, but all 12th VR has to do is have 3 bases right now.
Correct. I can't see the base because I'm spectating. Oh, Rick just got
Now the Jaguars
pounded.
have secured center, but what's the cost?
But at
As
what
a
cost?
as shooter,
Now,
go
as
ahead.
a small aside to our listeners, there are a few laser boats that actually do quite well on this map. One would be the flying red avatar. It has enough heat sinks to the point where if you group your laser weapon systems correctly, not only can you use it as a fairly effective jump sniper and a support mech, you can also use it as effective anti-air and focus
Now,
components.
the ticket bleed has been reversed, at least for the moment, but how long can they hold on to center because they need to erase 40 tickets?
It depends. I would not advise any of the players to chase right now. If they ball up, if they repair and then ball up, probably be for the best.
Yes, and at the moment they're shooting at shooter and trying to make to the determination whether a base is safe. And as we can see, Ben is way in the background. Uh, that base you'd have to imagine belongs to them, so they should have 2 bases at the moment compared to the equivalent of, I believe, 2 at center. So I believe that we're tied up on bases from what I can tell. The Jaguars have a slight lead. Now, Ben in a Mad Cat, that's the other thing, though, is that as you start to bring heavier things into this game, if you're not careful, it takes you a long time to get to your location, and if you run into too much trouble, Spetnots, you don't have the speed to escape.
That's for sure. It's often an issue where sometimes you get into a pub match, for example, you're doing well, you've got 3 experienced veteran players who are in assault class assets for solid most of the game. They open up the way for their teammates and some of the lower tier skill or just lower performing players on their team to get heavy assets, and suddenly you start losing most of the capture points on the map because timing and positioning really just isn't at 100%, and that can really be a detriment.
Now, folks, keep in mind some of the players that you're watching are across the ocean, but we now have a Gauss Demolisher and a triple UAC 10 Saber and Snow Gibbon moving up in tanks. And honestly, if you need to start punching above your weight, tanks on this map can be devastating.
Absolutely. A Moragoo D, if used correctly on this map, can be absolutely punishing. If you have a pilot who can slap every single one of those Ultra AC 10 rounds, and they come in 2-round bursts now, unlike in previous patches where they were 3-round bursts, you can focus components so quickly that if you get a sight line for about 10 seconds, you can pull off a torso.
And now Proxima does not have radar information, except that Rook has said they have tanks coming. But now Proxima has his damaged team with the enemy Vegans closing in on him from 3 different sides. Strategic retreat.
Strategic retreat. Or get his forces to focus the...
He's decided to stay,
Whoop.
but he's now getting hit in 3 directions. And a Blood Asp is how many tickets roughly?
Ugh, I am not sure, but it's a lot. The rest of Smoke Jaguar needs to get balled up within 50 meters of Proxima, Cairo, and Evan.
Proxima trying to lay down some damage, but short of playing dirty and just trying to flip that tank upside down by running into it, I don't think there's much they can do.
That's my favorite strategy.
The Jaguars are going to try to hold their ground, which is a bit of a surprising decision. They're going to lose a lot of tickets here from their deaths, but they are getting a few kills themselves.
That Moragoo going down is fairly important. It's a lot of money.
That's an even trade, you could say, perhaps. The Moragoo and the Blood Ass going down. And holy shit, I apologize for swearing, but I'm that surprised, broadcast partner. The Jaguars actually mostly held their own during this and might actually repel the attack.
Haha! Focusing fire. It's just too strong.
Of course, just as I say that,
It may end up being a draw in terms of ticket loss.
to where even if the Vegans take it, that they lost a lot of tickets and they will be in the same position the Jaguars were. If you don't head out to repair, you're toast the next.
Absolutely. This may be a time for Smoke Jaguar to do something a little bit unconventional. Start using some unconventional strategies. One might be to run all of the same variant asset, and in doing so, it makes it much more difficult to focus fire unless people are calling names and have the same sight lines. In addition, you can really get good group cohesion if you get all within the same range. For example, a whole bunch of bushy bees rushing the same objective together be quite menacing, even against assets that are higher than their tier or weight class.
Now, the Rangers won the engagement. We have a plane in the air, a Shiva for Saber. So now, not only did they hold on to the engagement, not only did they hold on to center, they have the ball's in their court. They can use what assets they want. They can position at what bases they want, and it'll be up to the Jaguars to figure out a way to get this lead back, Spetnuts.
Time to use the RATMs. They're not super damaging, but they are really annoying.
Now, Proxima, in all things, is in a rotary autocannon Warhammer, which, mind you, he did well in Evan's entry trial yesterday. But high explosive bombs, MRMs, and nobody around to assist you.
I believe those were clusters.
Clusters, okay, thank you for the correction. Which means they're even more damaging.
Clusters actually are less damaging than high explosive bombs and less damaging than laser guided bombs.
Regardless, though, Saber will likely have to go back to
rearm.
However, the damage is done. Proxima is not able to capture a base for the time it takes him to repair, and that lead is going to grow quickly for the Inner Sphere.
Absolutely correct.
Saber died.
What?
He must have crashed. So, okay, there's 8 tickets.
Yes, infamous Vegan landing style.
All right, now the Jaguars are bringing 4 assets to center to counter the 2 damaged assets and 1 fresh asset. So it's a 3-on-3 fight at center, and Carbonell just almost went in the lava. He is safe. The Jaguars do not have the armor to win this engagement, I don't think. Rook Zero is going to try to hold his ground in his rotary autocannon bushwhacker, but the Vegans are doing a very good job of making assets to counter what they think the Jaguars will use.
Carbonell has likely gotten stuck.
And the Jaguars are going to lose more assets at center unless they get some reinforcements. But the problem is that 12th VR is getting reinforcements now, and frankly, if this assault at center fails, you would have to think the Jaguar strategy has to change completely immediately.
Might just be time for a change.
You've mentioned, and I agree with you, that it might be time to start looking at side base captures, try to outspeed the enemy, try to not be where the enemy is. It's a bit hard when there's a plane in the air, which will assume that Saber will remain in the air, but the Jaguars are going to continue pushing for center. They now have the forces to contest, but if it fails 2 times in a row, Spetnuts, I just don't think you can come back from that in this type of a game.
That's very possible. I would say that it's typically very hard to spot a black lantern or black backcapping asset on this map, simply because black on black with radars off is, oh boy.
And Carbonell didn't explode, and he can still fire, but the problem is, 1, he can't move, and 2, there's nothing in the range of his turret.
I gotta love living legend. Oh no, he's gone.
And the Jaguars put it up a good fight, but high cost here. They're getting damaged themselves, and their lack of an air pilot on their team in this round, I think, could end up being a major difference. Who knows, Spetnuts, had we let you play, maybe this would have been different.
Ha! I'm not that good.
But at the moment, the Vegan Rangers are able to repel once more a full-scale Jaguar assault. It looks like that's the way, because this only leaves Cairo, and Ben is still fresh around the corner. Let's see what Ishiyama can do in his damaged bushwhacker. Or just let Saber take care of it. He takes down Ishiyama. Rook Zero, so the Jaguars are able to hold on, but they only have 2 assets.
Oh, here goes Ben. Cairo's on a murder streak.
And frankly, it might take something like that to do this. Just hero mechs meet hero pilots. But as you can see, though, that plane continuously is turning into a nightmare for the Jaguars.
That's correct.
Now, keep in mind that they have not secured center yet, and that he has to get Rainbow defeated. The problem for him is there are two assets shooting him, and the Jaguars' assault will still likely fail, even though they were able to kill pretty much everything there. That's just the advantage of the spawn timer. Spetnauts, you can defeat the entire enemy, and then suddenly they respawn.
Suddenly the base is gone.
Yes, at this stage, you would have to wonder if it's crossed either leader's mind to take care of the side bases via any means necessary.
Absolutely.
Um, it looks like that they have secured the thing, so my doom and gloom was a bit early, but still, Rook Zero heavily beat up, which only leaves one Vulture at center and a fresh shooter coming up in his Warhammer Rifleman. So a close fight. Let's take a look at that tickets. Oh, it's good, but it's not good. The Jaguars have stopped the bleed, I think, but and have closed it to 25 points. But Spets, you need to be in the lead with when you get near 10 minutes remaining.
That's for sure. Although I have been in situations with actually shooter nonetheless of note where we've turned around TC games with 5 minutes less.
Well, it's going to have to be a come from behind in the fourth quarter here for the Jaguars. As kids in a dual UAC 20 MK2 suddenly realizing the heat is a nightmare with that asset.
It is powerful. I'm actually surprised he didn't bring the LBX variant.
Now, Saber is nowhere to be found at the moment, but you can always bet that if he's flying, he's nearby. The Jaguars have secured center for a moment, but they need to get those damaged assets rotated out of there immediately. Spets, I think that's been one thing that we can fairly criticize during this battle, that the Jaguars have not timed their repairs well.
Absolutely. And it's even harder to time repairs correctly when you're running at a 7-player strength. You know, you have to either put people into cells and hope that they get damaged evenly, or just have to have that really gelled team coordination to just make it work.
And now, Rick Hunter and Ishiyama have captured a side base, which will either even up the bleed or remove most of the gains that the Jaguars have had by taking center. And I've had a crash. That's never fun.
Don't worry, I'm still recording. Wait, where's my sounder for this?
Achieved with CryEngine.
There we go.
Now, Spetnauts, what are we looking at? Where's the fight at? What part of the map is there exchange of gunfire?
Doesn't appear to be any major fight at the moment. Let's see what Prox is up to. Kidson looks like he's coming out of the main hangar. Or, nope, he's returning for repairs. I have to find 12th VR.
12th VR is at one of their. A few of them are at their side base. Saber has not returned to the air that we have seen, or if he has, he's taking his time.
Could be backcapping.
Perhaps the Jaguars have upgraded enough that the plane is hard countered if it gets low enough to bomb. And how effective is high altitude bombing on this map?
Ah! Don't do it. And also, that really isn't the playstyle of Saber, who's now returning for attack runs. I honestly cannot say I've seen him do high altitude bombing. Always comes in very low, slow if he can get away with it. Erratic maneuvering as he comes out of the turn to stay away from projectile-based anti-air.
Now, as they move their assault against the Jaguars at full strength to center, um, tell me about these laser-guided bombs. How do they work, and do they follow tag or narc?
Oh, they are wonderful. In fact, if any of our listeners are interested, I encourage you to watch a video called called Close Air Support, or CAS, Smoke Jaguar style. It's on YouTube. It's on my channel. And in that, we use a Xerxes with laser-guided bombs and narc assets both on the ground and in the air. Laser-guided bombs follow... Oh, Kenray fell in the lava. The floor is lava. Laser-guided bombs follow both tag and narc, and they are incredibly powerful in that if they all hit the same target at the same time, and sometimes in the same component area, they can occasionally alpha a
Saber is. Go ahead.
disconnected.
Saber has lost his plane. He ejected, I think, on purpose. It's a 6-ticket
A
game.
bold strategy.
It was a 6-ticket game. Now it's a 21-ticket game. Look at that. The Jaguars have the lead. Can they hold it? Can they hold the lead?
This is true power as we get into the straight brawl.
The Jaguars need to clear out center, and then they need to prepare. We cannot emphasize to our viewers enough, Spetnauts, that this game will be lost in a close fight if the Jaguars do not time their repairs correctly.
There is just a shit ton of pain at center. Rainbow is walking into a meat grinder. It is now 166 to 104 with 8 minutes less.
Who
left,
has the
ladies
ticket
and gentlemen.
lead?
The ticket lead is with Clan.
It appears somehow that we are equal on bases, somehow.
What in base cap tarnation?
Or not. If not, it's slow. And here comes Saber with the same plane again. And goodbye, MK2. And goodbye, other thing. Right there's 20 tickets down the drain in 2 seconds.
Damn. Away it goes.
Now, but the Jaguars do have the ticket bleed after all. So, how do you finish this up if you're either team?
This is the... Did Saber crash again?
He's purposely ejecting to capture.
Bold
Exploit?
strategy.
Question mark? No.
Not an
Unsportsmanlike?
exploit, but I'm pretty sure he loses tickets when that Shiva gets destroyed, correct?
Legal strategy, sportsmanlike. We'll leave that up to you at home. But still, maybe they
Saber
need the
tier means
bases.
is what I would call it.
Maybe they need the bases that bad, Spetnauts. Maybe this is suddenly turned more than we are led to believe.
Seems like a reasonable strategy, although at this point it may be good for a Smoke Jaguar to... I'm not sure. If Saber decides
Artillery?
to fly again... if he was to fly again, I'd say under tons so you're not worrying about bleeding
Right.
tickets.
Like, I've done that strategy before, but that's always in a Sparrowhawk or a VTOL. Now, Saber's going to get some BA weapons, but he is now removed 90 tons from the field, Spetnauts.
Has he disappeared into the mountain? What?
There's a
Oh, there
base
he is.
there for BA spawn, but while Saber is an excellent BA, and let's give him credit. Let's say he is as good as a heavy mech out there. He can't move very fast, and he's stuck at center. If he can hold center, great. But Spetnauts, when you play as a BA in a tight map like this, you are effectively down an asset.
That's correct. I'm wondering... I can't actually see the who has what bases at this point.
Well, I can tell you that center belongs to the Rangers, and then we can probably make guesses on where the other assets are nearby. So let's see. One of the side bases, let's see if anybody's here.
Proxima could use some covering support because his back is out, and
The Rangers
battle.
are spread all over the field, which leads me to believe that they are down not only a small amount of bases. I believe that the Jaguars have secured a good chunk of the field, because right now the Rangers are literally spread over about a 1.5 kilometer spot, and the Jaguars are defending the other end of the map. It's still
They
a
can
close
get
enough fight.
they can get on back onto center. They might be able to take it.
Well, they are sending 2 assets there now. Saber
I
is
think
gonna.
Saber just jumped over the lot. Up. He lands safely.
Yes,
Watching
now
Saber is always a real joy just
it
because of
is.
his ability.
I have seen Saber hold the Mirage base as a battle armor against 10 assets for the better part of 5 minutes before. So
Believable.
he is capable. Now, Carbonell tried to get a bit cute here and capture one of the side bases, but Rick Hunter's Mad Cat was having nothing of it. But Rick Hunter will need repairs now.
It appears Rook is going to capture center, unless I don't see any Vegans.
Ishiyama is nearby. Ben blew his asset up, his demo. The Vegans are making too many mistakes. They could still turn this around, but at the moment, they are effectively down 2 full assets.
95 to 74.
And that can change with one engagement, but the Jaguars definitely have the advantage at the moment. Can they hold on, Spets? How do you play to hold on to a 20-point lead with 5 minutes?
Oh, ball up in the highest tiered capture point. and try and bleed out any tickets. Just stay within 5 to 10 meters of each other. It doesn't appear that 12th VR is probably going to fly again this late in the game. And
They
at
are
that
amassing.
point, they're amassing.
But yes, flying at this stage, unless it's the dual heavy Gauss Shiva from the days long gone, it just won't make enough of a difference.
You know what 12th VR needs right now?
And they are flying. What do they need, Spetnats?
They need,
As the Shiva goes over by. They
need a lust for revenge.
They need to murder ball. What you're saying is, forget the bases. Spets, you're correct. They need to get everything together, pick a target, and shoot until the game is over. You never know if you're going to take enough assets.
I'm wondering if they're waiting for Saber to do a bit more damage to soften up before they go in.
Because if they can clear the Jaguars out and get center, they still have a chance. But if the Jaguars take any bit of their forces more than 2 or 3 dead assets,
Snow Gibbon and Shooter have gotten caught out in the open, and Smoke Jaguar's taking full advantage.
And this is going to be 15 tickets. Saber's going to get some. Saber's going to get his. He's going to get some damage.
Nope. Saber has decided to.
That was a mistake. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be neutral.
And
but
Cairo's still flipping. He's the little tank.
Now, I will grant you that was not sportsmanlike. I will grant you that, and so be it. I'm not criticizing anyone. You're late in the game. You're desperate, and he does take the tank out. But now, is Cairo going to be happy about that?
Nope.
I don't
Cairo's
think so.
Fine. He's flipped himself back up with the extraordinarily long turret of the Morgue.
Now the issue is Saber at this stage has effectively cost his team effectively 40 tickets in about a 5-minute span. Now, how many did he gain when he controlled center? We don't know. But it is a bit of a surprise to have him continue flying with Shivas only to use them as transport.
It is a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out.
Now, the only thing that's going to save 12 VR is if they can murder ball and plow through every single Jaguar in front of them, because otherwise the Jaguars can lose half of their assets and still win this.
They need to. SJ needs to not peek, and the Vegans. The Vegans don't have the force and numbers, the firepower to take that. Essentially, at this point, they're waiting for the rest of their assets.
I'm a bit surprised that Proxima hasn't told Kidson and Kin Ray, balls to the wall, clean them up. They have the forces to do it.
I don't think they know that they do.
Okay.
Proxima's taking Gauss fire from like Snow Gibbon.
But I am very surprised that the Rangers haven't been a bit more aggressive in pushing up, because they do not control center. Obviously, the Jaguars are holding, contesting center.
Oh, looks like the Vegans are going to start pushing in now. It's going to be a pincher attack from two sides.
And if they take down every Jaguar, they have a chance. Can they do it?
That's a Morrigu. That's a Morrigu. 2 Morrigus.
Can they focus fire?
Not fast enough. There's too much cover on the inside. And
they're doing damage.
It's 76 to 18 with 20 seconds left and 2 aerospace in the air. This game is over.
On behalf of SJ Spetnauts and Smoke Jaguar, we thank you for watching this battle on the Chaos March SJ Network, and we'll see you next time as this ends the battles for tonight, Saturday the 7th, and we'll return tomorrow with coverage on the 8th. Spetnauts, it's been a pleasure.
One question.
Yes.
They just crashed into the ground 2 more times. What's the tally at now?
It's 0. They're out of tickets.
No, I mean, how many times have they crashed?
That is 6, and maybe we'll see more tomorrow. Spetnauts, it's been a pleasure as we sign off.
Later.